Hey everybody! So today we're going to continue on talking about the North and South nodes in different signs. Today we're going to focus on the North and South nodes in Capricorn and Cancer. Now, just to, again, as a disclaimer, I always like to start them off with these. What I'm about to say should not be taken as absolute correctness. I mean, I think they're pretty right. I know Natalie would agree. But the way that you chart weave, and when you chart weave your own chart or somebody else's, you might find that some of these fit, some of these may not fit for your particular situation or the other person's particular situation. You'd want to take everything into account, but these are some ways that your mind could go when you see the North and South nodes in Capricorn and Cancer. Whether or not you actually, stay there, where your mind, where these, where these ideas are, would depend on the entire chart. So, without further ado, let's start with the South Node in Cancer. So, when you see a South Node in Cancer, and of course, this depends on what house it falls in and all of that kind of stuff. But you could kind of think a South Node in Cancer, the person, there's usually something family related going on with the South Node. And again, the South Node is just where we're comfortable. It's not, and what is known, it's not always what we like. It's just what we know. So there can be things going on with family, with nurturing, with mothering, with caring. With the South Node in Cancer, this could be a lack of. This could be too much of. All of those things. It really just depends on the rest of the chart. But your mind would want to go towards those kinds of things. Emotions are another thing. Perhaps the person, perhaps there was, and with the South Node, you always want to kind of veer on the side of things being more challenging. So perhaps there was something going on with their emotions from this previous lifetime lens, or just what they come into this life comfortable with, how they feel comfortable operating. Perhaps there's something going on with the emotions. This could even be, even though it's Cancer, this could even be somebody not feeling like they can express their emotions very well. It can manifest like that. It's not always somebody who is comfortable with their emotions. That's kind of a misconception, that when you see a South Node in Cancer, that it automatically means the person likes their emotions or feels comfortable expressing them. They might express them, but they might not feel comfortable with it at all, for whatever reason. But there usually is a known sense about feeling things, whether they like that or not. So those are some ways that my mind would go with the South Node in Cancer. Now, you'd also want to look at where the moon falls in the chart, because the moon is the ruler of Cancer, to help flesh out this story even further. So from there, we would go to the North Node in Capricorn. Now, and then you'd also want to look at where Saturn is in the chart, because Saturn is the planetary ruler of Capricorn, to help flesh out the North Node story even further. So when you see a North Node in Capricorn, automatically I think to myself, this person wanted to mature somehow. There was a maturing that needed to happen. And mind you, I'm not calling you Cancer, South Node people immature. I'm not saying that. But there was something that you wanted to grow into maturing. You wanted to mature into. That would also be shown by what house this is going on in. This might be perhaps a sense of responsibility, because Capricorn is responsible. Perhaps being more disciplined. Mastery. Growing into mastery. Growing into your own authority, or learning how to handle concepts of authority in general, whether that's your own or that of other people. Those are usually highlighted as well. Again, none of these are universal, but these are some places that my mind would go if I saw a North Node in Capricorn. Some of these themes, or at least one of those themes, is generally somewhere in there, usually. Yeah, I mean, you could really enter any of the, say, Capricorn keywords there, but those are the ones that usually come to my mind first. Now, whether or not they stay, my mind stays there, is another thing, but those are things that, those are places that my mind goes first when I see a North Node in Capricorn. But again, you'd want to take the whole chart into account. If anything is squaring the nodes, anything conjunct the nodes, and the planetary rulership of the nodes. All of those things you'd want to take into account. Okay, so on the flip side of that, we would be looking at the South Node in Capricorn. Whoops, there are the cards. So a South Node in Capricorn, and of course this would also, you know, depend on what house it falls in, but you might be looking at perhaps somebody that was too disciplined or too rigid from a previous lifetime lens. Again, you want to look at this from a more challenging lens. I mean, I'll say this. Some people seem to have really, really, really nice Nodal Axis stories, right? It's like good times and noodle salad. But in the case of the South Node, you do want to veer on what is challenging. So you'd want to look at more of the shadowy, or the shadow side of the sign. So Capricorn can be very rigid. Capricorn can be overly disciplined, right? Capricorn energy can also be kind of severe. It can be. There could be something going on with severity in terms of how the person functioned. Capricorn energy is also brooding, and it does have a hard time being satisfied. So those are also things to consider, ways of operating. Responsibility is another one. Sometimes responsibility isn't always easy, nor is it always good, especially if the person is taking on responsibility for things that aren't really their responsibility. This kind of energy could have a tendency to do that as well. South Node Capricorn people could have a tendency towards this, towards taking on more responsibility than they actually need to. Shutting themselves down and shutting themselves off is another thing that comes to mind, that could come to mind if I saw the South Node in Capricorn. Yeah, I think that's pretty good for that. And then, of course, you would want to look at where Saturn falls in the chart to give you an idea of more about that past life story, or just what you come into this life comfortable knowing and understanding. So then that would put your North Node in Cancer. So North Node in Cancer people, there usually is something that they need to learn about their emotions. There usually is. Of course, where the moon falls in the chart would help to flesh all of this out further. But there usually is something about emotions that the person did want to learn this time around, and feelings and those kinds of things, embracing those kinds of things, learning how to. Perhaps dealing with any or learning how to deal with any insecurity that they may have, any personal core insecurity. Let me see. There usually is a nurturing thing or a mothering thing that they wanted to understand and learn. That doesn't mean that they themselves have to become parents. Not at all. Though I wouldn't rule that out as a good thing for North Node Cancer people. I wouldn't rule it out. I could see how that could play into their mission. But learning how to nurture does seem important. And this could very well be nurturing themselves too. Perhaps dealing with relationships, learning how to grow into dealing with relationships with family in a different kind of way. That also seems possible. Let me see if I missed anything. No, I think that's pretty good. Oh, Cancer is very intuitive. I would say developing that, your intuition, or intuition in the areas of life in the house that the Cancer North Node falls would probably also be important to a certain extent. Again, none of these are universal, but these are just some places that your mind could go when you see this in a chart. And you'd want to, can't remember if I did this or not, look at where the moon falls to flesh out the North Node story more. All right, well, I'm gonna get going. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, we're at Let's Fuck with Astrology. I am at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Apaterno Astrology on Instagram. If you're watching this on Instagram and you want to follow us on YouTube and subscribe or whatever people do there, you can search for Let's Fuck with Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you want to join us on Reddit, you can find us on the subreddit Let's Fuck with Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, y'all. I'll see y'all later.